Alright, that's Requiem for the Ball. Death to the Ball, One-Eyed Jack in the Shells. Thanks for joining. Go ahead and share the stream. I'm going to go ahead and update the title. This is the 10th of January, 3 days away from what might be the date hinted at with all of the 3/11, 11/3 pre-scripting. We predicted November 3rd they'd be nuking Seattle. Didn't happen. But I'm kind of looking, not with hope or apprehension, but with a certain level of expectation that, yeah, it's very, very probable that if they're following this script, they would go with a 113. I mean, we predicted 311 last year. We said, hey, look, there's a damn pattern here. Obviously, 311, there's going to be a thing. And sure enough, Boeing had that max crash, killing hundreds. And of course, Boeing ties into much of what's going on now and even later in 2019 when we were talking about this space station as something that was possibly going to go down as part of the space war. And of course, what I'm talking about here is this idea that if you know anything about 9/11, if you studied the what they would call conspiracy theories around it, a big part of it has to do with this idea that it was hinted at. There was foreknowledge. Much of the foreknowledge was apparently in the popular culture, things like The Simpsons. And this is all what I would describe as meta scripting, and more or less that there is a uniformity behind the worldview being presented, and it crosses across Hollywood, news media, entertainment, academia, religion. Like, these things aren't separate. See, now we're joined by 49 terrorists. Want to let you know, I killed comments on YouTube because it's full of government trolls. And they get these sock accounts and they try to, be the loudest people in the room. So what I've done is I went ahead and muted the chat there. So if you're watching from YouTube, all you need to do is go to D Live and search for Infinite Plane Radio. Thanks for following, Automatic. Thanks for subscribing, David Freeman 1. We got Rand, Sean, Earthplane, Finkelstein, and Monkey Mind Studio all subscribed in like the last 15 minutes. Flatty donates a diamond and says, Google dancing Israelis. Do you know what I mean? Sure. You're referring to a certain red herring. You know what's more, I think, relevant than the dancing Israelis? Gelatin. The artists up on the tower throwing the dummies off for the camera. Ponoku says, Google 9/11 was a bad B movie. Man, there was a video that was out a few years ago. It was hilarious. It was called 9/11 Was Hilarious. And it was just this, I think, calliope music and then fast forwarded 9/11 attacks. And yeah, it was kind of funny. Someone from YouTube. Oh, comments are on YouTube. I thought I had shut them off. Okay, well, if you're on YouTube, you're on your own. I hope you have a wrench because I'm not handing out any, and you have no protection from the trolls. Mousegate is still a thing. It hasn't gone away. It's worse than ever. Red's Rhetoric and his boyfriend, Fight the Flat Earth, gave us the Dumb F of the Year award for calling out the ice on the rocket or whatever. But again, they're talking about it. And other people are uploading Mousegate. Flatty says, no planes on 9/11. Donates a diamond. Yeah, you know what? No planes. No holograms. We don't need them. I mean, all you need are liars, crisis actors, CGI. How much of it was filmed in advance? Do you know for a fact that the footage you saw, some of the footage of the buildings falling, were actually depicting real events? They say, well, it fell too fast. Well, maybe it was a special effect. Thanks, Mo, for subscribing. Look, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers so that the videos will store in the archives right below. I mean, we get replays, but we want them to store. We want this to be a permanent fixture, and we want these subs to be permanent. Someone says that meme. Yeah, it's not a meme actually. This is an astronaut. You did see him on December 5th on the CRS-19 mission. He was seen inspecting the booster during their initial exit from Earth's gravitational pulls right after they exited the atmosphere. They had to send him out there. These genetically modified mighty mice can survive the temperature, the heat, the speeds, Mach 8, as you can see. We weren't meant to see it, but yeah, that's a genetically modified mouse. Now the funny thing is, and this is the part I mean, this is the part that people might find unbelievable, is when he went out on the booster during the flight, he wasn't even wearing his spacesuit. I mean, we've seen astronauts, like human astronauts, forget to wear their gloves. You seen that video? This astronaut who forgets to put his glove on and he's like fixing something, and you see it, and they say, "Hey, we can see your thumb," and he hides it. Look here. So when this mighty mouse, this rodent, genetically modified rodent, went into space on December the 5th, wasn't even wearing a suit. That's Captain Mighty Mouse from the ISS. Yep. All right, so let's continue. I have a few things I want to go over today. Let's start with this. Oh, yeah. Little crisis actor analysis. So this is something we've seen before, but I think it's worth bringing back once in a while. So what we have here is death in Vegas, mass shooting unfolds. This is when the heavy censorship actually started. Vegas. And so here is a Vegas witness. There's a few witnesses here. And the one I'm going to show, this is a Washington Post. Okay, so this is like big media. This isn't some local thing, okay? And she's also wearing this flannel, which I think is kind of funny, because it looks to me like they hired a bunch of actresses and actors to pretend to like country music. Oh yeah, go country and attend this concert. They did the same thing with Borderline. The actors are all from Los Angeles and Hollywood, and they come out dressing up in what they think like a hick would look like. I mean, it's funny. They put on boots, flannel. It's just a caricature. Anyway, listen to this.
Dropping around us, and everybody tried to stay down. Basically, got a lot of people that probably.
Now look at that. Now why is she showing her legs to the camera? And you can note how like the blood, like she didn't even wipe it off. These aren't wounds, so where's the actual cut? Is this shrapnel? And why hasn't she wiped it off? Why is she showing blood to the camera?
Probably have passed away, is blood on me.
Oh, somebody else's blood on her. Oh, that's real tasteful. Washington Post.
And there's a lot of dead bodies.
A lot of dead bodies. Okay, so that's the person in question. Now here she is right before the event, and she's on Dr. Phil. And she was brought in because her mother said she's a crazy narcissist, and she went to Dr. Phil for help. Post Globe says thought strong. Well, you'll see. You might be right about that. I think she bugs her eyes out really crazy here. Dr. Phil always looks like he's wearing a bald cap. I don't know why. Why does he look so rubbery? But let's listen for just a second.
No, I think single girls should be wary all the time. So, what?
Yeah, that was what I was looking for. So this actress, I mean, I'm saying she has to be an actress because one, we see her on Dr. Phil playing the role of a narcissist, acting. Then she shows up as a witness to this event, and right after that, Dr. Phil goes out to Las Vegas to go meet with victims, and his head doesn't look as swollen right there. But you see what I mean? So then her name, Coronel, she goes on to Twitter to say, "I'm not a crisis actress." She tattoos Vegas Strong on her hand. But she actually has a pretty prolific Twitter account, which is kind of like what they did with David Hogg. Look at Vegas Strong, Route 91, I'm not a crisis actress. Right. Okay, so Ponoku says, I don't know if the flat earth is covered by a dome, but Dr. Phil has one. Hey, thanks, IFEP. I appreciate the support there. Look, if you're on YouTube, you need to get over to D Live. YouTube is worthless and it's full of trolls. A few more things about the drones. You know this whole drone thing? They've been spotted in swarms above various cities. And I think this might be part of a buildup to this um, UFO invasion. But what I don't think they're going to do is I don't think they're actually going to stage a UFO invasion with Area 51 type stuff. Like it's in the open right now. It's known that the popular UFO conspiracy
He's a Greek
theories,
god.
the popular conspiracy theories about flying saucers, UFOs, alien abductions, and such, these were all spread by military intelligence, by the Air Force. Like this is well known. You know, it's a fake conspiracy. So we're not actually going to have an alien invasion. But what they could do is pretty much the space 9/11 could be attended by a bunch of drones, maybe Chinese drones. So hey, this is one more thing. This is from that crisis actress. Keep your spirit light, your booty tight, and your goals in sight. Does that sound like? I don't know. Does that sound like someone who's not a crisis actress? Does that sound like just like a regular person or someone who's extremely ambitious? I mean, someone who's going to go on TV and play the role of a narcissist. At a very minimum here, we're looking at someone who's very ambitious. And that's one of the things that I would imagine you would look for if you're trying to find, what kind of person is going to lie on camera and go against the Americans' Second Amendment and First Amendment, because that's what they use this thing for. And what kind of person could be such a sellout? And so that's kind of why I looked into this account. I thought it was interesting, and it does kind of comport with the idea that we're looking at an actress. Oh, she's a self-admitted witch as well, which doesn't mean anything. Nothing against you witches out there, but the idea of a witch, of course, at a minimum, it's like saying, yeah, I worship the devil or I'm against the grain. It's just an antagonistic position. Now, I did come across some interesting information. I don't know who wants to hear about it. Maybe we'll get into it. It has to do with a certain YouTuber. Don't necessarily want to go there. We have another possible fake death. American Horror Story actor Harry Haynes dies at 27. So someone suggested it might be a 27 clubber. There might be some hints in the birth date, the times of the death. There might be something worth looking at here. Didn't David Bowie die on January 10th? Another death faker. They use certain dates. Let's take a look. David Bowie's death date. January 10th. Now, did this guy die today? Just going to double check. I mean, it seems like they do follow patterns. I mean, like Brandon Lee, Nipsey Hussle. We have so many days that overlap, many of them. Okay, looks like I don't know which role he played. I could only stomach so much of that show, American Horror Story. It was pretty awful, and I think it was designed to reinforce the idea of like mass shootings happening and many other things. Oh, he was gender fluid. He says, I know I'm born a male, but I don't think I represent what it means to be a man. It gets confusing when we label ourselves in this society. Cause of death has not been announced. So if this is what we'd expect, if this is a hoax, if it's a 27 clubber, then it's going to have an agenda behind it. And it looks like here it says he suffered from insomnia. So one of the agendas might be pushing mental health awareness and perhaps even increasing the measures against people who are critical or hypercritical of gender fluidity because you're microaggressing them to death, etc. So that could be the thing here, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was a death faker, who comes back, with a different look. Okay, so let's see. We were talking about the Las Vegas event, and someone sent this to me today. I didn't know this. So the group ISIS claimed that Stephen Paddock was actually one of theirs. And they said that he had answered the call to attack coalition country citizens, but they had no evidence for their claim. I thought that was interesting. Jerry says the Joker was arrested today. Which Joker? Are you talking about Joaquin Phoenix? Yeah, Joker movie star Joaquin Phoenix arrested today. Okay, before we go on, a few things to mention here. His brother River Phoenix is widely believed, and I agree that this is the case, to be a death faker. Phoenix, of course, dies, it's reborn. We've discussed this stuff ad nauseum. But in context, this character playing the Joker is relevant to these fires, and we talked about this earlier. In fact, I can show you one of the names of my podcast where the title says it, but we went into the symbolism here. How the idea of, or these fires that were breaking out all seem to be predicted, or they were mentioned in the script, more or less. So the Joker represents the planet Mercury, or rather, the planet Mercury represents this Joker archetype. And this is something we're looking at this year because Joker transits the sun on 11/11, and on the Joker movie, all the clocks were pointed at 11/11. And the Joker movie ends with a big conflagration, fire, and then he dies, and then evidently he's going to be reborn. He doesn't die, but he goes unconscious. But it's the same sort of story. And the idea of the dying and resurrecting God is pretty much mirrored with the phoenix, and they use these things interchangeably. So when this transit happened, I was talking about how it happened during the same year during which we had the summer solstice that was accompanied by Mercury being prominent in the sky. And this was noted. And look, what I'm suggesting here is that many of these characters on the world stage are fulfilling certain archetypes here on Earth, but that there's some type of correspondence to what's going on above. This is why so many of their events are tied in with the solstices and the equinoxes. That's why holidays are all based on the sun. So we've associated this character, though, Joaquin Phoenix, with fire, obviously the flames. But on the solstice, we were talking about how on that day Mercury was extremely visible and prominent in the sky, and the city of Phoenix was burning. If you remember, there was an evacuation. And at that same exact time, there was a phoenix spotted in the aurora borealis above a retired Russian military base. So we had a number of these synchronicities involving phoenix and fires. And of course, this Joker character, who is mercurial, associated with the planet Mercury, the Joker. And the movie, of course, Conflagrations. And around this time, we have the PG&E fires. So what we were kind of drawing from this is that there was some type of hint about this use of fire to bring about chaos, and of course this order which follows the chaos. So here I'm looking and it says Joker movie star Joaquin Phoenix arrested at protest. He was attending the latest of Jane Fonda's Fire Drill Friday climate change protests. Fire Drill Friday, and of course the PG&E fires and the Australia fires are being blamed on climate change. So Phoenix has been arrested at this fire drill protest. So I'm just saying here, it looks like there might be a bit of meta scripting. Dread Matt Bear says this probably does not prove anything, but when I looked up River Phoenix in the Social Security Death Index, his name popped up. Of course. You're talking about characters who are written into the stage and then off of the stage. I mean, it's a complete package. They're fabrications. The person you see on the world stage, and like even actors you may know, you think, okay, well, we're seeing the real person when they're being interviewed. Well, not really. If you pay attention, their opinions are very uniform. You will not find an A-lister who does not believe in global warming. And that's because they're not being their authentic selves. If you see them on the screen and they're using the name that you're familiar with their celebrity name. It's an act. That's how I've been looking at it. Now, hey, look, I don't know what it is, really quick here, about Joe Biden. I know he's gross and stuff, but I'm going to ban stickers of Joe Biden licking toddlers just because they're in bad taste. You got to think about the kid. Like, you want to make him look bad. I get it. He's a Democrat. That's already bad. But you're also putting that kid in the picture, and it's like if you were the little kid who got licked by Joe Biden, do you want to be memeified for the rest of your life? Do you want that to be commemorated? No. Okay, let's see here. Phoenix arrested at Jane Fonda's fire drill. And of course, again, they're blaming these fires on climate change. They're blaming the fire. Well, it depends on who you are. Here's the thing, it's kind of funny. It depends on where you are on the political spectrum. If you're on the left, you're blaming it on climate change. If you're on the right, you're blaming ISIS or government malfeasance. If you're in the center, you're probably blaming chemtrails and direct energy weapons. In all cases, whatever it is, it's definitely what I would consider to be kind of like how they're doing war, but instead of you fighting, it's the world fighting you. I think climate change and this climate chaos that they're creating is World War III. All right, so let's see here. Eat less meat to slow climate change, the UN says. They also say we need to get rid of half the world's population. And if you looked at the Joker movie, and I did analyze this, the movie really did have a subtext of class warfare, rich versus poor, this Marxist dialectic thing where the poor are being oppressed and they got to rise up and overthrow the rich and share the wealth and make everything equal. And that was the subtext of the Joker movie. And communism, of course, has been repackaged, and the communist revolution has been repackaged as environmentalism. Jerry says he had admonished everyone to go vegan for the planet. Makes perfect sense. It says here, even the Joker believes in climate change. Phoenix told a crowd of protesters, something I think isn't talked about in the environmental movement in the conversation about climate change is that the meat and dairy industry are the third leading cause of climate change. So look at that. I mean, that's what I said. You're not going to find an A-lister who doesn't believe in climate change. It's uniform. And I'm suggesting here that Fire Drill Friday, the name Phoenix, the fires in Australia, the fires in PG&E, which we said was Purge. And of course, if you looked at the movie, they all put these masks on, like the movie The Purge. The Jokers rise up and they bring about the order. And here we have this idea that there's like been 200 people arrested for starting the fires. These would be the Jokers, the agents of chaos that precede the clampdown. And I do think we're looking at order out of chaos. In fact, that's the main theme behind the Joker movie and behind many of the psyops. And this is one of the things we had analyzed when we looked at this character, Joaquin Phoenix and the Joker, is that with Batman and Joker, you have this really, it's one brings the chaos, the other brings the order, but it's reflected in many of the psychological operations, the fake terror attacks, most notably the Boston bombing and the Aurora shooting. Boston bombing, the guy's name was Joker. They called him the Joker. And after he escaped, they had to bring in the Batman, which was the police with their full body armor, looking like RoboCop, looking like Batman, marching down the street looking for the Joker. And his name was not pronounced Joker, but they called him that, and it pretty much was like Jokar. It was like a joke. Then you have the shooter in the movie theater. And of course, so what we're having here is you have this example of a character, this random terrorist, the Jokers, right? The wild card. And we have to be protected from the wild card, the crazy person, the mentally ill, the ones you can't predict. Because it's not an ideology, it's not a religion. No, it's just crazy. but they're so crazy that they elude regular cops. So it's not like a regular police officer can stop one of them. Nope, you got to bring in the SWAT team. You got to bring in the DHS. You got to bring in all these agencies, and it becomes a very big, like, quasi-military operation shutting down the city. So what I'm suggesting is that's the order, and of course you have the chaos that they use first in order to get you to agree that we need the order. So they're setting the fires. Whether it's negligent or intentional, it doesn't matter. These fires are being set as a way of creating the chaos. This is World War III. World War III is not guns and grenades and tanks and all that. No, it's climate change. It's the climate being the universal enemy of man. And of course, climate change is attached to a climate eschatology, as we've been discussing this entire time. And it's really no different than this idea of an economic collapse. And just as the commies pretty much instituted various ways of making sure that our system gets overthrown, this Cloward Piven strategy, they want an economic collapse so that they can distribute everything. So you know they're willing to destroy the present order to bring about the new. Well, that's the phoenix. You destroy the present, you sacrifice the now for what comes next. So it looks to me like they're willing to sacrifice the present order, including our freedoms, including your dairy, including your meat, in order to bring about a more perfect one world order, one world system. United, of course, under this idea that we've got to save the planet. And saving the planet is a religious endeavor, if there ever was one. Lean Dion says they have burned in a perfect path for the new smart train lines. Exactly. But instead of bombing you, with these, with a world war like in the style of World War II, they're doing it more subtly. But you don't see any complaints on the left. They see this as vindication. They want it to burn down. The political left wants the ocean levels to rise. They want polar bears to drown. They want things to go. They want their doomsday so they can take over and say, see, we told you so. They want the world to end as bad as the Westboro Baptist Church wants the world to end. So they can say, we told you so. It's sadistic. So don't think that they're not cheering. So anyway, this guy is a total sellout, Joaquin Phoenix, and he played a role in the movie The Village, which is about a commune, and he's one of the escapees. But it's about a people who are it's like an Amish culture, and they're living on this commune, but they don't know that they're in the 20th century. They're living like it's the 18th century, and their parents don't tell them that they live on private land, that they're being kept from the world. And the way that they keep them from wandering is their parents tell their kids as they grow up, that there's monsters in the woods. And one of the ways that they keep the myth alive is once in a while they dress up like a monster. They have these costumes, and they basically do terrorism. So they use terrorism to keep the people in a state of fear and dependence. And interestingly enough, if you go out of the village, you run into these bushes that have red berries, and that's the forbidden color, like red pills. If you go where the red pills are, and once you go over there and you find the road and you get to civilization, you're not allowed back in. But he was in that movie, this Phoenix character, which is ultimately about what we're talking about, where it's ultimately about the use of psychodrama and terrorism to coerce people into huddling together under the seemingly benevolent protection of Big Brother. And it's not benevolent, that's the thing. It's a form of slavery. All right, so the fires continue. Mousegate is something we're going to continue to harp on. I'm not going to let that die down. Okay, possible death faker. Do I want to get into this? I don't know. Not really. We talked about the Vegas Strong. By the way, High Impact Flicks is Vegas Strong. Anybody who's Vegas Strong is discredited. Just consider them to be an agent. Now, Sunday, we have something happening. I'm going to be presenting something. So for the last couple of years, actually, the reason I started putting out videos on YouTube is I really started to, become aware that this space program is apparently sending an entirely different message. Like there's an occult side to what NASA and SpaceX are showing the public. There is an occult or hidden side to their pageantry. Like it's very symbolic. And I think it was Bill Cooper might have been the first to point out the Masonic symbolism. And so what I'm looking at here is the space program as it's presently, we're used to this. It's a ritual, the way that these things launch, the missions. And what I see here is there's actually another story being told, kind of like with the mainstream religions. You have an esoteric and an exoteric. So I began speaking on these topics because I recognized that there was an esoteric side to the space program. So I wrote the book Secret Religion of the Elite on this concept, and I wanted to, systematically present this in a way that not only makes sense but is digestible. So I'm breaking it into a 6-part presentation called NASA and the Cult of the Obelisk. So it's going to be based on not only Secret Religion of the Elite, but all of the research we've done since. I've outlined it. I have all the information sourced, and so the attendees, and it's going to be a Zoom conference. They'll get the notes, the links, the resources, and a download of the book that I'll be using for much of it. So part 1, Secret Religion of the Elite. Part 2, Where Ancient Mystery Religion Meets Modern Science. Part 3, Symbolism of SpaceX Blue Origin. Part 4, Symbolism of NASA and the Birth of the New Age. Part 5, and this is the part that you might be interested in, because I've never discussed this. Secrets I've learned in Thelema and Scientology. I'm probably not going to talk about Freemasonry because it's not as relevant. It kind of is, but as far as the origin of the space agencies, I'm mostly interested in bringing up how I came across this idea that there is an esoteric side. And I learned about it from Thelema, which is where Jack Parson comes from. Tying it all together, part 6, Baal worship as world religion, as expressed in climate chaos eschatology, Noah, and the modern flood myth. So this is going to be a presentation starting at 12 Eastern Time to 6, so 12 to 6 Eastern Daylight Time. It's called, again, NASA and the Cult of the Obelisk. If you're in the Patreon, Jerry says, is there ancient anything? Well, you'll see what I mean. Like, I'm not making any assumptions. Certainly not. But what I am showing is that this space program is patterned. It is literally patterned off of Mystery Babylon, whether you want to call it ancient or not. I mean, ancient could mean 200 years. But you're not going to get this information from anybody else because no one else that you know has spent time with Scientology and Thelema. And look, I'm attacked for it. Bob Noodles from Lobe Busters has often told people, don't listen to him, he's a Scientologist. And it's like, no, I'm a journalist, I'm an investigator. I don't sit on the outside of a building and talk shit about who's in there. I go inside. I've been inside churches, mosques, temples, whatever. So I do my own research. And my research led me to things that got me to uncover that, yes, NASA is Mystery Babylon dressed up like science fiction, and I can prove it. 6-hour course, it'll be probably 50 minutes, 10-minute breaks. And the way I'm going to do it is 50 minutes on, we're in a Zoom conference, and I'll take 10 minutes of questions. And then repeat, going over these sections. This will be taking place on Sunday. Now again, if you're on my Patreon list, you might want to wait, and I'll send you a ticket link, because there'll be a discount if you're already on my Patreon. Otherwise, here's a link you can get at infiniteplanesociety.com. America First King says, did they get Bill Cooper? I don't know. Bill Cooper always seemed legitimate to me. I always assumed Alex Jones / Bill Hicks killed him. I mean, it was Cooper who revealed many of the initiatory oaths that showed that Knights of Columbus, Masons, Mormons, that it's all the same stuff. Post Globe Syndicate says, I don't think modern Scientology is what L. Ron Hubbard originally intended it to be. Well, whatever he intended it to be, it's based on a model of the mind that I think is, well, it's based on the idea that we have a perfect memory, but that it's somewhat occulted from us, and that you can actually extract these memories. It's a modern take on these ancient or more traditional mystery schools, that's for sure. Now, they have an odd obsession with Alice in Wonderland and name calling, which I think they call bull baiting. But we'll talk about that when we're there. I'm also going to discuss the gang stalking, which is not a huge part of it, but it's just worth mentioning because we're looking at the Jesuit order repackaged in so many different ways, including New Age, including, I think Masonry. I think all roads do lead to Rome. So there's the link. If you get in on this course, you will also get, like I said, program notes, ebook, Secret Religion of the Elite. And so I'm putting together my notes still and all day tomorrow. This is where it's at. It says L. Ron Hubbard hung out with Crowley and other occultists. Well, that's one of the things I'm going to talk about. Crowley was in a three-way relationship with Jack Parsons and Jack Parsons' girlfriend. And they did certain types of pagan witchcraft together. And it's all very documented. Like there's really no more blatant a symbol, I think, than the rocket with the name of the dying and resurrecting sun god. So I'm going to move on, but just letting you know that I'm going to be promoting this tomorrow. I'll send out links and we'll see what kind of turnout we can get. I think this information needs to get out there. We need to tie all these things together pretty much once and for all. I don't want to play this. It did come across my desk. Dolly was a hoe, a Mandela effect rap. A lot of, you can look it up on YouTube. I'm not going to play it, but yeah, there's a lot of cringe rap going on out there. Now, about the mystery school thing, check this out. And I'm going to move on to another topic. But a few weeks ago, this video came across my feed here. It's called Kabbalah and Science.
When I first made the correlations between Kabbalah and science, I was stunned.
We do know that Isaac Newton had access to certain mystical texts.
Isaac Newton had access to certain mystical texts. Mumbo jumbo. They were repackaging mysticism and dressing it up like science. And then later they're going to say, hey, look, it was this, even the Big Bang. But look, I'm going to be going over this video as well. Just to give you an idea, we have a lot of great content, all of it's very well sourced, and every claim I make is going to be backed up. And it's not really about the shape of the world. It's about the world shapers, the worldview shapers, who controls this place, and the meaning behind it. Because you know what? Everything has to be decoded, from the satellites to your carbon footprint to the meaning of outer space, or even what the planets mean. America First says, is Kabbalah Jewish? Yeah, pretty much. But it's what we're talking about here is this idea of, it's like a map of the cosmos they call the tree of life, where we're at the bottom and the God's at the top, and it's just light, and then we're at the bottom of this sphere, or this, well, I guess they call it a sphere. But you got these 9 spheres arranged around this central light. And I think it's really just pretty much the solar system. It's another concept, not a description. Linda Curtis says the Big Bang is the sperm that creates us. Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of symbolism and mysticism, and you find it in outer space. I mean, we've talked about this as well. I mean, you look up outer space news and the planet Uranus, and you get all kinds of like dirty jokes in the headlines. And you can call it space news, you can call it science or whatever. But when you read these headlines, it's horrible. I almost don't want to read it. But I do this because I want to show you. I want to show you that they're not serious. This is definitely going over people's heads. Express.co. Space Agency wants to probe Uranus according to NASA. Hubble reveals dynamic atmosphere of Uranus. A big space crash made Uranus lopsided, the only planet to spin on its side. It says here, space rocks pushed Uranus over, made it lopsided. And that's not the worst of it. There are many more, and what I'm saying is that there's very little actual science. It's all speculation, and much of the speculation has layered meanings. And I guess they're doing it for clickbait and cheap laughs, but when every other Friday they're telling you you're going to get hit by an asteroid and it doesn't happen, at some point you have to ask, like, well, how can they be wrong 100% of the time? And yet, when they do things millions of miles away, they're right 100% of the time. The same guys who can land a probe on a comet 220 million miles away, which they said was the equivalent of landing a fly on a speeding bullet, they do these magical feats with precision 100% of the time, and yet they can never get it right when they're calculating the path of a rock coming down to hit us. Yeah, Big Bang, creation myth. Yeah, look, SpaceX is really SpaceX, and it's not that it's pornographic or that it's just some joke. It's actually because these are fertility rites, and the obelisk is the member of the Earth god, and the rocket going to space is about their conjugal visit every night, during which we have, of course, the conception of the sun god, and then he's reborn. And the goddess symbol you see with the blue robes and the stars holding the baby Jesus or holding baby Horus or baby Tammuz, that's the night, and that's the sunrise. The sun god being reborn every day out of the darkness. And then, of course, he's the Skywalker who walks the sky until he's dismembered at the end. And I'll go over the Star Wars stuff as well, because there's quite a lot there. Even the fact that Skywalker Rising came out on the winter solstice, very significant here. Everything I'm talking about does pertain to the sun. I was glancing through something. So there's a scene where Luke Skywalker, I think he's hanging upside down in a cave. Here's another one. He goes inside of a dead tauntaun to warm himself up. So in the first one, you see him getting his hand chopped off, and then, of course, he's put back together, his hands assembled after he hangs in Cloud City. So you have this guy getting his hand chopped off, and then he hangs. Well, this is just classic astrotheology. It's Darth Vader is definitely Saturn. But the hanging and then the having his hand put back on is symbolic, and we'll get into what that means. But even in the other movie, the next one, where he starts out hanging upside down in a cave, and then after the cave scene, where he has to use the force to bring the sword into his hand so he can chop that monster up or whatever and get himself down, that scene was pretty much emblematic of the previous one, where it was all about the having the member lost or dismembered, and then having to reattach his sword hand, or use the force to bring the sword back into his hand. Well, on the second one, after he is able to bring the sword back into his hand and he gets out of the cave, he crawls into the body of his, it's like that dinosaur thing he was riding. He literally crawls into the body to keep warm. So then when he's rescued, they pull him out. So you see Luke is being reborn. It's also kind of interesting that he's being reborn out of a creature like this, and not a... there might be something symbolic here, because many of these sun gods are said to have been, fathered by a serpent. I think that's another common thing. But my point is, he's hanging, he reattaches his sword hand, and then, of course, you have this scene where he's being, pulled out of the belly of this thing. We'll get into all this. It's all astrotheology, and it goes deep in Star Wars, and there's a reason why Star Wars is popular, and it's not because it's good. As I've been saying, entertainment is just a side effect of your brainwashing. And the Star Wars is all brainwashing. If you're entertained by it, it's just because you don't know what it really is. Kind of like the people who keep eating Tide Pods. Like, no, it's actually not edible. You keep eating Tide Pods, then you start to misinterpret mice, and you see instead pieces of ice and insulation. You know, for those people who are saying that this is not ice, or sorry, that it's not a mouse, that it's actually like a piece of debris, including Jaren or Bilu, who says, I'm sorry, what's it? Bilu Vanaducci from Globusters. He says it's pareidolia. No, it's not pareidolia because we have a second one. There's another mouse. What are the odds that you would have an ice sculpture shaped like a mouse spontaneously form twice in a row, and that it would spontaneously form into a mobile ice sculpture? Linda says Jonah and the whale. Interesting. Yeah, they do take a lot of these old stories and retell them. This is what we see with the flood myth and climate change. They're retelling the public. Like right now, the public is being taught about Noah's flood. It's like, you don't quit your pollution, God's going to flood you. You don't quit your sinning, don't quit your wickedness, God's going to wipe you all out. They're retelling the same myth, and they don't even bother to change the names. And this is something I'll be discussing on Sunday, and of course it's this, that NASA's working with this NOAA, which is basically the group that says you got to cut your pollution or else, and their symbol is the dove flying over the ocean, which is the symbol of Noah's dove. And the dove symbolizes Noah because when he goes out into the ocean with his ark, he's waiting for a sign that he can go back to the land, and the sign comes in the form of a dove who brings him a branch, a stick, showing that, look, there's green, there's land, you can go back. This story has been told to the youth through movies like Wall-E, where they're basically blaming the older generation for their wickedness, for causing the flood. Get into this on Sunday, though, because there's just so much that we've gone over in the last like 2.5 years on this topic. I think it's about time it gets a little more organized into a systematic, here we go, a systematic presentation where it makes sense, it's in order, you know where I'm coming from. And so when I say that SpaceX is actually telling two different messages, one of them totally occult, I can prove it. And of course, this thing about Thelema, that's the secret society that the SpaceX is actually covering up, or rather, they are what you see on TV with Falcon 9 is the exoteric side of what is an occult ritual. And it's kind of interesting how they do it in our faces, and it's like you can be a secularist, you can be an atheist, and yet you probably believe the world's going to end because of climate change. You may think that the Pope genuflecting before the obelisk is some kind of archaic figure from another age, and yet there you are, screaming and jumping and clapping your hands every time a rocket blasts off into the sky. Like it's the same pagan cult. I also discuss the god of recycling, the true god of this thing, the new version of the earth god, and why recycling is such a big part of this. NBC News, if you go to NBC News, you can actually confess your sins, your climate sins. And the Pope has designated eco-sin as a new category of sin. So if you litter, you're actually throwing trash on God. If you pollute, you're doing it to God. They've actually managed to get Christians to just worship the earth. They've managed to get atheists to worship the earth. This scientific paradigm, which I do contend is completely a mask of something older, it really has ensnared everybody, and this is the one world religion. Cult of the Obelisk, that's kind of the name I gave it for a few reasons. Let me go ahead and see if I've missed anything else. I'm going to pass on discussing Rock Lover. Rock Lover is like a 5 or 6 year troll on YouTube, and I found out who this person is. and I'm kind of dying to let people know, but I'm going to let it just sit for a while. Hey, check this out. I hope Cam B's around. This is an interesting one. So I found this series of articles about Miley Cyrus's knees, and I'll show you how I got there. Where she was joking about how she has this issue with her kneecaps, how they bear a resemblance to Seth Rogen. And so I looked into it, and yeah, her kneecap does look like Seth Rogen. Other times it looks like Elliot Wagland. So very distinctive kneecaps. That's kind of the reason I'm bringing this up. She's joked about it. Here's another article. Miley Cyrus's kneecaps look like Jimmy Neutron. So there's Jimmy Neutron. And sure enough, she's got Jimmy Neutron on her knee. So here's how I got to this. I saw this image posted of Ayesha Curry, who many contend, including myself, Ayesha Curry, we believe, is none other than Miley Cyrus in a, kind of a fat suit. Definitely some cosmetics and makeup and all that. But yeah, we're saying this is the same person. And I saw this picture of her walking, and I'm like, let me go ahead and take a look at those knees, because Miley Cyrus's knees are always talked about. So I took a look here, and funnily enough, Ayesha Curry's knees not only look the same, but I see Jimmy Neutron and the clown from It, like in these two. So I don't know. I mean, is this normal, or is this just a Miley Cyrus thing? How many of you have faces in your knees? Like, I'm starting to think that she has got these really unique features on her kneecaps, and yeah, it's pretty consistent. Same person? I don't know. I mean, I think so, but does this bolster our case? Hey, for those of you listening on YouTube, please join us on D Live. I'm going to shut off the chat on YouTube. Not right now, but it's going to happen very soon. Just going through your comments to see if I've missed anything. We have 113 domestic terrorists right now hanging out with us. Now here's something. It's a very minor mention of flat Earth. This is an article about how having a big YouTube channel doesn't make people happy. And I was just kind of scrolling through it. And when did people become such church ladies? Listen to this guy. He says, everything that we do can be monetized on the internet if you can find your market, and this mechanism has allowed for a terrifying wave of conspiracy theories about the flat earth and QAnon. Terrifying wave of conspiracy theories about flat earth. Like, when did flat earth become scary? A few days ago we were just watching the Jimmy Kimmel coverage where they're laughing at it. So are they scared of it, or are they laughing at it? Is anybody here interested in learning the identity of Rock Lover, the YouTube troll out of Manchester? If anybody wants to know, I'll go there, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to wait. Now, this is an interesting one. Who here is aware of Lord Stephen Christ from the Concave Earth? They found a picture of him as a teenager. To be honest, I'm kind of glad to be away from. No, someone said, a few people want to know. I kind of don't want to talk about it. I do, but I don't. Rock Lover has been a troll for about 4 years. These people are so crazy. But if you don't know, how many here knows who he is or are aware of him? If you're aware of him already, I'll go ahead and go there. Somebody here has to know who I'm talking about. He's annoying. You don't know Stephen Christ? Stephen Christ, let's see. I actually have an interview with him. Troll versus Trolls wants to hear it. Okay. Okay, well, Troll versus Trolls uh, is the reason why I came across this information. Every time he puts out a video, it just brings out the worst people on YouTube into one place. It's like a bunch of baddies, a bunch of bad guys in one place. All right, so I won't even comment on his videos because there's like literally, you know how many people hate my guts? There's like at least 1,000 people have a passionate hatred for me, and they all subscribe to this channel. So I won't even comment because they'll just.
I'm gonna calm down because he just want to learn something, so I teach him something. I ain't no.
Okay, so this is Troll versus Trolls, Flat Earth Prima Donna, Mark Sargent. Interesting little piece here. Richie from Boston, what's his name? Russian Vids is talking to Mark Sargent. Very long video. They talked about Mark's background, how he used to be a video game player or something. Russian Vids called Eric Dubay a phony since Eric Dubay never shows his face on camera anymore. He's always hiding. He's hiding in Thailand. But Eric Dubay's put himself out there enough, so I kind of give him a pass. If he doesn't want to interact with these troglodytes, why should he? So Eric Dubay is called a phony by Russian Vids. And of course, Russian Vids says it's because Eric Dubay never comes out and meets anybody. Well, nobody's actually seen Russian Vids in person. Space Bubble says Russian Vids is a Super Rats believer. Oh, Rock Lover is. Oh, Rock Lover is friends with Super Rats. That's worth noting. Yeah, let me go ahead and get into Rock Lover then. So I was looking at this video here and Rock Lover's comments kind of caught my attention here, and here's where it led me. We'll go one by one. Rock Lover is talking about, man, this is all just really just gutter level stuff, but you know, we have to talk about it. So let's start with this first. We're going through some screen caps, and then at the bottom of the screen caps we'll get to unveiling this person. So this is from a couple of days ago. When Mark was talking to Russian Vids, Mark called Logan Paul gay and said that Logan Paul paid that woman to pretend to be his girlfriend. So I'm like, okay, well, Mark's kind of taking his gloves off. He called Math Powerland incoherent. He said he can't talk. I mean, Mark was kind of being mean to people. Never saw that side of him. So here are some screen caps that were provided by this Rock Lover character. And in these screen caps, you find a number of things, focusing mostly around this character Omni, who is an ex-girlfriend of Patricia. And for some reason, or for several reasons, people think that this is kind of a key to the whole thing. Not getting into that. What I'm getting into is this. In these back and forth exchanges, these trolls are going back and forth, Rock Lover divulges something about himself. What he divulges is this. Lord Stephen Christ apparently was fixated on Jen, this Jen character. And I guess the reason why this is of interest is that Jen is Rock Lover's friend, supposedly. But my contention here is that Rock Lover is Jen. That's what I've arrived at. And I'm going to start walking you through how I arrived at this. Still, I kind of want to save it just because this person's been annoying to me for so long. But I'll just leave it at that for now and we'll move on. Basically, yes, Rock Lover is this person named Jen. And I'll let you all look into it and then I'll bring out the info that backs this up. So it's kind of funny though, because what we're looking at here is Lord Stephen Christ was kind of hitting on Rock Lover, not knowing that Rock Lover is this person. Now again, this would only be interesting to you if you knew who Rock Lover was and if you were being annoyed by this person for a few years and you want to know this person's agenda. So I looked into this person a little bit and I'll just show you a couple things that I found. Let's go with this. There is a Patreon page. Now, I don't know if the person's a flat earther necessarily, but it looks like it. Okay, here's the person, Jenna.
that. I take your criticisms on board, and I have.
Okay, this is from September of 2016. It says, would you like curvature with that? A selection of the comments from my flat earth videos from today so far. So this is Jen, aka Rock Lover.
Of obstruction. Because when a ship goes over the horizon, what you're seeing is them going, ship, 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 ship. Air. No, what?
So there you go, Rock Lover. Anybody else care? I mean, there's plenty of connections here, but thing is, some of the connections are involving like third parties who aren't really a part of this whole conversation. So I'm kind of like, you want to dig, you can find it. This is Rock Lover. This is Rock Lover. So, friend of Super Rats, poor taste in friends, but that's not my business. So, let's see. And I will say this, Rock Lover has a lot of inside knowledge, uses a lot of terminology that gives away quite a lot. I'm not going to go into that now, but we will cover this in the future. I just want to let that much out there. Just see if anybody cares and see who corroborates on this. I always wonder, it's like, why do these people who are so obsessed with this whole topic, why do they have to hide? Like, I'm wondering, is Flat Earth Reset a woman? I mean, I've seen his hands, but that doesn't prove anything. Okay, let me get back on track. The reason I don't want to get into all this detail is that we have a lot of people making slurs. I mean, Mark Sargent calling Logan Paul gay, Patricia Steer calling Mark gay. I'm like, what are these people doing? It's like playground level. Like, this is high school. Like, I like to be the adult in the room. Mr. Stray says, why the long face? Rock Lover. Yeah, there is more. I didn't want to drag other people into it, though. That's the thing. It's the reason why I kind of strayed away from it yesterday. But I can tell you with like 99.9% certainty that Rock Lover is that person that you just saw. Yes, I'm holding out. I'm sorry. Now, we still want to find out who Flat Earth Reset is. And look, I'm not going to tell if you tell me, and there might be a bounty in it for you. So, look, there's a lot of people who want to know who a lot of people are. And anybody who knows anything about Reset. Oh, hey, look, surprise, surprise, surveillance video from Epstein's suicide attempt disappeared. It's because there never was a video. Epstein didn't commit suicide, nor was he killed. All the people saying Epstein didn't kill himself, acting like they have some type of like inside knowledge, no, you don't. Epstein is a total construct. 100% fake. I'm not sure 100% if he is who Cam B says he is, but I have no reason to believe that's a real person whatsoever. Alright, let me see if there's anything else here in Troll vs. Trolls. It's doing very well as a channel. It's actually probably the most relevant Flat Earth channel out there. Let's see. Flat Earth music, a lot of cringe music. Red's rhetoric. If anybody can get a picture of Red's. Actually, I don't want to hear his voice either, but Red's rhetoric, of course, gave us the dumb F of the Year award because of the mouse gay thing. And they're still kind of holding on to the idea that it's ice, but I'm saying, if you look at the second video, there's no way you can walk away from it. Conscious Daughter says, I think Crazy Bone himself trolled my page. Is that a death faker? I mean, we get a lot of real-time response. You know, it seems like you touch on a certain death faker and they make a move. They make headlines. So we were talking about this Miley Cyrus being Aisha Curry, and next thing you know, she's trending on Instagram, saying that somebody's deep faking her, putting her face on somebody else. I just don't believe that this Epstein thing is anything other than political drama designed to get people to vote. I mean, weren't we supposed to have like World War III Where's all that drama from like last week? I thought the world was going to end. I saw the headlines on Drudge like we're going to war, bro. Here's an example of what I would call damage control. So Cam B gets on the line and he says, "Hey, I think Epstein is just a mask, and I think Epstein is being played by Barack Obama." So we go ahead. I'm going to run with it because it's rather funny how, as different as you think they would be, they actually do have very similar, strikingly similar features. Well, right after he brings it up, this story goes viral. And the story says, "Did Obama wear a Rip Epstein shirt?" So it was a viral image that shows Barack Obama wearing an Epstein shirt. Now, the reason why this stood out to us at the time is that if you were to search Obama Epstein leading up to that day, you would have found our content. The next day, you found this, a debunked story. And we've seen a similar pattern, like with this Ayesha Curry, Stephen Curry going viral for somebody deepfaking him, right after we talked about how we suspect that this is somebody playing a character. This is where it's at. It says, "I think Canada is owned by the Royal British Family. HBC is the documents." Continue. I mean, at this point, though, I don't even find any of this stuff to be all that shocking. But some of these claims are just, they're so extreme that people can't believe it. But when you actually do look at the profiles, it's so close. It's just uncanny. And yeah, some people do look the same. But what we're suggesting here with some of this deep fakery would only make sense if you took the time to look into the mask technology used by the intelligence agencies. So here's a video. I think this is the first one. Oh no, this is one of the newer ones. This is Cam B discussing these new photos of Epstein. These new photos of Epstein don't make sense in context. Not only the ridiculous pile of blankets, but the intubator in his mouth wasn't there. Like, when did they put that in? It wasn't in when they wheeled him into the hospital, and they still had the oxygen on his face with the manual. I think it was like he was like manually squeezing oxygen, and he was doing chest compressions, but like he didn't have an intubator. Was he even wearing a gown when they brought him into the hospital? So these don't make sense. None of the photos make sense in context. It's all just part of a drama. I don't believe it's real. But all it takes is one headline to really bury something. And we've seen this so many times that it almost looks like a pattern. I mean, it could be coincidence, but here's a good one. And we're going to be returning to this very soon, because part of this analysis of the metascript, or the mass media, including the cultural media, the outlets, is you get these pop idols. This is, of course, Nipsey Hussle, who died last Easter in this shooting, which we contend was a fake shooting. It was pretty much as fake as it could be, especially when you looked at the CPR, one-handed moving chest compressions on a gurney with a guy with 6 holes in his torso and no blood. And it was then that I was first contacted by Cam B, who pointed out that, hey, if you look at the baby's mother, it looks exactly like Laura London, China Hustle and Laura London. And this is very consistent when we're looking at the overall picture here of a cast of actors in a staged theatrical performance that's played out over a period of time. And it's just done through the entertainment media. It's brought to you through social media, through TMZ. So it's still a movie. It's just a little less centralized. But this is something we'll probably be discussing, not necessarily the notion that we have actors playing multiple roles, but how many of the big dramas are in fact replacements for older stories, older dramas. So for example, the idea of the sun god dying on Easter, Jesus, right? dying on the cross. Well, Nipsey Hussle, of course, 33 years old, dies on Easter carrying his son named Cross as he walks up to the place where he's shot. And the footage we got on this case, of course, was so bad. It was like, was it the same camera that gave us the Zapruder film? You couldn't draw any rational conclusions from it, which is what they wanted because they filled the whole, they flooded the zone with contradictory conspiracy theories, which is what they do to hide the fakery. You know, we had instances of crisis actors uh, actually showing themselves in acting lessons on Instagram. I mean, really, this thing was one of the sloppiest psyops we've ever seen. Michael Cervantes says, I read the LA Times daily waiting for them to cover Nipsey's killer. Oh, yes. Don't know if that's going to happen. Court TV coming back. OJ was making the news again. I mean, 2019 was very interesting, but I think that some of these psyops that they did were just so sloppy that, you know, they give us a lot of room, though. I mean, really, if we want to, and this is what I constantly do, though. We look for these little glitches in the matrix. You know how much damage Robbie Parker did, you know, to the MSM's integrity in the minds of how many millions of people who looked into that event as a result of the odd behavior of the parents. Dental Misorder says the internet has made it impossible for them to not get sloppy. Yeah, I should probably mention that they've always been that sloppy. It's just that we're noticing now. People say, oh, maybe they're trying to tell us. Maybe they're attempting to let us know for some occult reason. They have to tell us. No, it's just that we notice now. It was so much easier back then. And even though their special effects are obviously going to be better, with so many people watching and so many people skeptical, I mean, that's why they hate this concept of auto hoaxers. Because here you are saying in advance, the instant they present anything, that, oh yeah, it's probably fake. You don't even give them the benefit of the doubt, which is the main point here to take away, I would say, when it comes to the media. Uh, Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Find the Gray says, if the state is just the old pagan religion reborn, then wouldn't the narrative of their agencies, oh, isn't the narrative the agencies are, yes, that's, I think I get your question. And everything does fit. That's what I'm saying. Like, when the president is swearing an oath to the obelisk, you know, it's the same, it's just occulted. And it's not as simple as Satanists, adrenochrome junkies, or Illuminati, because they don't worship the devil. They're not the bad guys. Like, they worship the guy with horns, and you worship the guy with the halo. It's really not that simple. It's it's not even really about a higher power anyway. It's about the power of state, not some divine power. A lot of it, I think, is just mumbo jumbo meant to screw up your operating system. You know, so I don't think we're dealing with these like satanic forces of darkness. I think we're dealing with um, a state that uses enforced ignorance, weaponized ignorance as a tool of social control. And you can hear it in their oaths, and I'll talk about this on Sunday. You know, you take an oath to say, we will keep everybody outside of the temple from seeing the light. They're taking oaths that the people outside are hoodwinked, they're blindfolded. And they use that. It's like, how easy would it be to control everyone if everyone was illiterate? Well, guess what? Everyone is illiterate. Maybe you can read the words, but 99% of the people out there are visually illiterate when it comes to video manipulation and people faking emotions. Dental Misorder says, I've been saying for years American news and politics is the same as the WWF. I used to think that was cliche and I used to hate it when people said it. Now I know it to be true. It's just that it's so true that statement doesn't do it justice, because they'll say, well, you're just making an analogy. You're just doing maybe a little bit of hyperbole to make a point. And we're like, no, we mean it literally. Now, when it comes to worship of the gods, I don't think that worship as a term is very clearly defined. What do we really mean? I'm talking about observances. So we have a summer solstice. Their observances involve ceremonial fires, certain iconography. A harvest time, same thing. Colors, iconography, festivals, Easter, and solstice. And what I'm suggesting too is that they're still enacting these things based on the sun, and they're communicating their rituals, their rites, through the MSM, through the news. Yeah, I think I like to demystify it too. Let's see here. We have a phone call. Infinite Plane Radio.
What's up, IPS? Lickety Split here. How you doing?
Very good. Are you going to be attending Sunday's presentation, NASA and the Cult of the Obelisk?
I was not aware of anything. I've been kind of out of the loop lately, doing some shit, preparing for court and whatnot. But yeah, no. Where's the information on that?
InfinitePlaneSociety.com. What are you going to court for?
Well, it's an ongoing thing. I've been fighting some shit for a while, just experimenting with various processes and whatnot, trying out some of the soft hard bullshit, figuring out what's good.
Now that's not vague or anything, but because to give you a heads up, I've been working on this anti-cyber squatting Consumer Protection Act case that I opened on January 19th of last year.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I finally got permission from the judge as my own attorney to subpoena the registrar and get the information I need so I can claim those domains. I mean, it's a slow it took me a year. That's how slow the stamp process is. And I handed them the paperwork a year ago, but they're like, no, you have to do this according to our timeline. I'm like, this is crap.
Yeah, no, I filed some shit in federal court, and it took about 8 months to 9 months to hear from them. And then, you might still be tied up for another fucking 8 months. So get ready. But I highly recommend, if you can get a hold of a book called Moore's Federal Practice, and that'll give you like step-by-step for anything you need to know about it. So.
Well, I kind of learned by trial and error, kind of DIY, and also doing a lot of my own research. And what I modeled my case off of another one. And of course, the clerks were unhelpful. But what I found is that I could use the fax whenever certain things were requested, and I could just bypass them. So as soon as I stopped relying on those clerks who didn't even like filing my paperwork, and I started using the fax, I got faster results.
Yeah, that sounds right. The clerks are usually scumbags. Just wanted to call in about a few things. Did you hear about this discovery of a 512-year-old shark? Real shit. That's a real report.
How do they date a shark as being 500
That was
years
my
old?
exact question. That was exactly my question. Because it's alive, yeah. It's like it's supposed to be like a live swimming, like Norwegian shark or some bullshit like that. So, yeah.
I mean, they have their methods of dating things, but I call that all into question right now.
Right.
Yeah, so when it comes to the 500-year date, or 500 million, it's like, man, we're just taking this all on faith, and we let them stretch our timelines back. And I still hear a lot of people who deny most of the dominant scientific paradigm, still referencing these vast time periods, which are all, of course, based on the Big Bang and this whole process. And I'm just trying to get away from that habit. So, good job calling the bullshit on that.
Right. Also, a little prediction here. You've been seeing how the news, it's been hyping up, the stock market, and as, full auto hoax on the stock market for sure. That's all just, complete bullshit, just numbers on the screen and shit.
Wait.
They've been
you got it. That has to be an oversimplification. Someone has to tell them, hey guys, it's just numbers on the screen.
God, this is fake. Yeah, well, that's what your show's for. I guess that's what I'm doing right now. But they've been blowing it up though. Like it's like at 29,000. Like it started out at 10,000 like 5 years ago, and it's just been going up. And they just it just means they're pumping money into the fucking economy or whatever. But so I wanted to make a prediction here of some sort of giant economic event once it hits 33, right? Most likely. But yeah, I just want to get it on the record.
Well, wait,
So,
wait. See, if you want to go down as having predicted something, it's got to be a bit more specific. Like, so for example, they said we're going to be hit by a meteor on Friday the 13th, April 2029. I've predicted that the space station is going to crash probably on Tuesday. Like, do you
all
have anything
right.
specific?
Yeah, stock market crash. Let's say full blown Z's, fucking crash and just chaos in the streets and shit. 33 coming up. We'll see. Just throwing it out there. Um, let's see what else. Oh yeah, and another thing I've been noticing too: the Iran hoax.
Wait. Let me add on to
So
that really quick here. We
go
talked
ahead.
about this Joaquin Phoenix and this idea that he represents the chaos, right? And of course the fire in the
Okay.
Phoenix. But uh, Mercury is also the planet of money,
Trickery. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. The Mercury dime. That was in 1933.
merchant.
They minted the Mercury dime was and it had whatever his name, Mercury or Hermes, whatever was on the back of the dime.
Yep, the
You can look it
trickster.
up.
And but
Yep.
it's the god of merchandise, merchant, and so for this Joaquin Phoenix character to be brought up quite heavily, and of course the city of Phoenix was burning. It's on the 33rd parallel. That might be noteworthy here. But of course he's there with Jane Fonda at this fire drill, basically saying end capitalism. He's calling for the end of the system, and the movie itself is definitely class warfare, Marxist stuff,
Oh
basically
yeah.
bringing about economic collapse as a form of revolutionary strategy.
Uh-oh, we might be onto something here. All right. Well, just something to watch because it seems like it's just they're going to keep on pushing it up until one of their special little numbers comes up or some shit. But yeah. So I guess we'll keep watching that one.
Well, more importantly, you
let's
got to profit off it. If you know that some major catalyzing event is going to happen, you should be able to position yourself to benefit from it, right?
Yeah. Well, you mean like it's like I mean there's the idea of what's it called credit default swaps. I mean, but I'm not I wouldn't put money back into the system that I'm betting on collapsing. Is that what you're talking about? Or you mean like some other way of something more
Like
deep?
invest in MREs, sell them at a markup. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. That's not a bad idea. One other thing too was the Iran stuff. So this is so stupid, but don't you think that this whole little assassination debate that they've been creating on the news and shit? Don't you think that's kind of a good lead-in for the potential Simpsons prophecy of the whole assassination of Trump and all that? It's going to be like, you did to us, we'll do it back to you. It's kind of setting up for the whole this kind of systematic repercussion between nations. I don't know. I kind of think it is. What do you think?
Well, it would fit if you look at a lot of the predictive scripting, and if we take, for example, Back to the Future. Well, Back to the Future predicted 9/11 in like 11 different ways. So they also predicted that Biff the bully would be, taken down, and many people have equated him with the character of Donald Trump.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Hey, really
interesting.
quick here. They actually got a picture of Russian vids.
No way.
We actually got a picture of Russian vids. It's on the screen right now. Just came
Oh,
in.
okay. Hold on. I'm going back to my YouTube screen here.
Not
I
quite the
think.
same as Roddy Piper. Not as imposing.
Oh my god. All right. Nice. Hell yeah. So another thing with the Iran thing, I was just randomly looking up some shit, and it turns out that last little, so I guess this salami guy, as you call him, he was like involved in that situation in 1979. It was where like they took a bunch of hostages and all that shit, allegedly. But so I'm looking into it, and apparently the numbers on that one was they seized 66 hostages, and then they initially released 13, and then they held them for a total of 444 days, which all three numbers are, quite significant little numbers. But I found that kind of interesting. Just wanted to point that shit out.
Yeah, look, that all it really is. And this is one thing that we're talking about here is like we're not taking random numbers and inferring meaning. We're not going full Zach Hubbard on it. We're just pointing
Yeah,
out what's there. And what we
yeah,
even if we don't know what these numbers or patterns mean, we see subtext. There's like, for example,
right,
you cannot deny that the subtext behind like half of Jim Carrey's films has to do with the number 23 and the dog star. And you see these in all these
right,
films. It's like, I don't know what it means. We're just pointing it out. Well, the mainstream
yeah,
news is just as encoded as your Hollywood movies.
yeah. No, exactly. It's just kind of like you're making, taking note of it, taking note of the fact, and adding it into the equation, I guess you'd say, without getting into gematria nonsense. I'm not a fan of that shit at all. But let's see. I think that might have been pretty much all I wanted to bring out.
Did you have any opinion on Mousegate?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's oh yeah. That was the other thing. Did you manage to look up? I'm glad you brought that up. The Economist cover 2020 at the bottom. Someone's made a video of it already, but yeah, at the bottom of it says rat and then 3 letters, which the 3 letters apparently are like an abbreviation for some radioactive process or some sort of something or other. So it says rat, something, 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 and that's all it's like. So the bottom of the cover is just like a bunch of letters spelling out a bunch of shit, and the rat part's at the bottom of it. So yeah, someone made a video already, and they get into it, but I kind of lose attention after a while. But
Year of the Rat.
yeah, dude.
But look, Year of the Rat, Mighty Mouse, and look, I've seen people deny it. They deny that it's a mouse or whatever, but then we see a second mouse. So I think we have a winning thing here that proves, at a minimum, that there's some tampering.
Yeah, and I mean to even say that people want to try to defend that it's an actual video of some rockets taking off, but it's like the mouse is obviously just something they couldn't account for happening. In their little studio, mice get around. They're sneaky little fuckers, and they get into shit.
Yeah,
And
but,
they just
but this mouse was clearly not a real mouse. I mean, the proportions were such that it's like it's Mickey Mouse basically. So that's why I'm saying it's a digital artifact. It's not video compression. It's not frozen oxygen. I'm suggesting that this is a CGI mouse inserted into the shot.
just like to what end? To just like to fuck with people or
Well,
create this debate?
that's the interesting point there. I don't think we were meant to see it. I think that Elon Musk is very eccentric. I don't know if you caught him, but he did a striptease last week.
I saw a little bit, I think. Yeah,
Hey,
I saw a
hold
little
on,
bit
hold
of
on.
that. Yeah.
Commenter wants to know what Star Wars, what Star Wars meme that had flashed across the screen. There's a reason why I didn't keep it up there very long. Damn, that was an accident. I'm going through my
Oh,
look while we're talking.
yeah,
I'm emptying my meme folder, which is like like cleaning out your
yeah,
junk drawer
yeah,
in front of I shouldn't be doing this, and the stuff that's
yeah. Get organized. Yeah. Speaking of Star Wars, I'm glad you brought that up too. Pretty sure from what I've gathered, and I'm not like a big Star Wars guy, but from what I gathered, Skywalker, what is it? The Rise of Skywalker, like Rising Skywalker. That's obviously like a reference to the Phoenix Rising. The whole story is like the two duality thing is coming to an end, and that's it. Burning, and then it's going to rise. Skywalker Rising. It's going to be like a one. There's one force now. There's no good and bad.
I didn't
Some
watch
shit
it.
like that.
I didn't watch it, but I did note that the date that it was released was the winter solstice, and of course
Oh, that's interesting.
that's the
Yeah.
traditional birth date of the sun god in all its different forms. So I saw that. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, look. So the public thinks they're just going out to watch a movie, when in reality the public is going to church for Christmas.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, dude. Oh, and also while I was in jail leading up to the release of
Wait, wait,
it.
wait. When did you go to jail?
I was there from beginning of December right up until the 20th or whatever. I called you when I got out. Yeah, they were just playing Star Wars like every day, Star Wars marathon, like TNT or whatever channel, TBS or whatever. They just had that thing going all day, just like every day, just fucking every Star Wars, just leading up to this shit, dude. Just it's like it's like Hanukkah or something, just like several days of just worship, worship, worship. So yeah, that there's something going on. Like I haven't like watched the whole movie, but yeah, analyzing it, I'll keep in mind the whole Phoenix Rising and all this other bullshit.
Hey, real quick here. So Miles Mathis put out a piece recently suggesting that Ted Bundy was actually just a psyop, and that there weren't actually a string of these brutal murders or whatever, and that it was all just
Oh,
kind of faked. So I'm like, well, they have these apparent trials, they have these apparent investigations, and it's like, do police departments have psyop departments? We talk about these psyops all the time, but like, do they fake crimes? Do they fake drive-bys? Do they fake serial killers? And the reason I bring this up was we were talking about the movie that Phoenix is in, the movie The
yeah.
Village, where they keep everybody under control by constantly terrorizing them. And I'm wondering, how much of that is actually at work here? Are you, by the way, a serial killer? Somebody's asking in the comment section.
Uh, I'm not gonna answer that on a YouTube. Come on, jeez,
But no, you know what I
that's
mean though.
rude.
Like this idea though that
Yeah,
and he also points out in the same article, he's like, isn't it noteworthy that they stopped pushing serial killers back in the late 90s, right when the
yeah.
mass shootings started happening? And he said it's because when the media became decentralized, they weren't able to scare people with one or two boogeyman a month. So now they had to have these things happen all at once, and also catering to the short attention span of today.
Huh. That's very interesting. Yeah, who said this? Miles Mathis. Has he been listening to your show or what?
Miles Mathis, I don't know. He's cutting edge, usually has been. He's not right on everything, in my opinion, but he goes really deep, deeper than I do into genealogy. I kind of think he pushes the Jew red herring a little much, but that's all good. I mean, he
Oh
thinks that
yeah,
his take on it is that Tupac was an actor, not really a thug, and I agree with him there. He also believes that Tupac's death was faked, and I agree with him there. But
yeah.
he doesn't think Tupac came back as a Kill the MC with the rest of the crew around him. He thinks that Tupac is actually a gay Jewish actor.
Oh, that's a little twist, a little curveball there. That's interesting. Yeah, what were we talking about right before this just now? Because I had another comment, but I forgot what it
I was
was.
talking about psychological operations being used to corral the
Oh yeah,
population, fake serial killers, etc.
yeah, yeah, and then something about serial killer. Oh yeah, Recognizer put out a new video,
Yeah, I
and
saw it. Look,
he
man, Super
did you see it?
Recognizer is out of control. Super Recognizer needs to get some glasses.
Yeah.
I won't even go there. Look,
Well,
there's no
yeah.
methodology. Like I understand
No, I know.
Yuri Gagarin easy.
Yeah,
I'm with him on Buzz Aldrin and George C. Scott, but no, Picasso. I mean the skulls, man. Like I'm still trying to.
yeah.
No, Picasso.
Yeah, I've been looking. I try to find. I guess that guy like he has another channel, and he's like super Christian, like fucking really bad, like like he's extreme Christian and all this kind of shit. I think his name's like Jeremiah or something like that. But I found it somewhere. I don't know where it was. I don't know where it is now. But anyway,
Well, hey,
yeah,
one
I
more
think that's
thing. Okay, so someone had actually said that Zachary Hubbard, Zach Hubbard, might be Mr. E with a voice changer, or Mr. E might be Zach Hubbard. Have you heard that?
no, but I'm not really that familiar with Zach Hubbard or Mr. E, whatever
Okay.
that is.
Well, anyway, I
Yeah.
appreciate the call very much.
All right, for
Have a great
sure.
night.
Yeah.
All right, phones are open 505-510-4226. I have time for a few more calls. I am going to get to work on this project, the Sunday's presentation. We'll get to that. Going to see if I missed anything in the comments. This is where it's at. Says the 24-hour news cycle is bad for serial killers. Oh yeah, definitely. And look, the whole idea of serial killing as being a psyop kind of makes sense if you look at how it's been used, because every psyop has an agenda behind it. And so Bundy was used, I think, to nationalize a lot of stuff. Bundy was used for a few things. I think also he was a Republican. They made a point to say. Okay, check this out. The rat. So we're looking at the year of the rat. I don't know. Again, about Musk. I don't know 100% the purpose to it. But the fact is, that's a damn mouse on the Merlin engine. I happen to think Musk is in on it just because he's eccentric as hell. It's probably a joke, and it probably ties into Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Probably talk about that too. If you go to the Infinite Plane Society website, you'll see the topics we're going over. And I am going to be discussing the symbolism behind SpaceX, which I believe, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, it's based largely on Thelema and the Gnostic Catholic Mass. I mean, it's a whole other side to it. It's one thing to say that they're just lying for money, they're lying for um, social control. But when we look at this aspect of it, the esoteric side of NASA, it kind of goes outside of the range of experience of the people who are used to, debunking us. So, for example, fight the flat Earth and Reds rhetoric. There's not much they can do when it comes to this. Commenter, NASA, yeah, I agree. I'm not going to read that out loud. Serial killers only get 5 minutes of coverage, an event that can be talked about for days. Yeah, that's the thing too. It may not even be that the public's attention span has changed, but it's super divided. You have so much competition. So instead of one or two or three news outlets, you got so many that it's much easier. And I think it's even more effective to have lots of events all the time, and it creates that idea that you're constantly at war. This is where it's at. It says everything else in that video is good except for the rat. Yeah, that's something too. If someone said that maybe the rat is put there to distract everybody from how bad the rest of the video is, they've never seemed realistic to me. I mean, out of all of them, I always thought that SpaceX was kind of like low budget NASA. NASA has all the big special effects, and SpaceX is kind of like B movies, low budget, independent. They don't have decades of experience. So the takeaway from yesterday's stream is that Russian Vids is really mad that Mad Mike Hughes got a lot of attention from the media for climbing into a self-made rocket that he built in his garage on a limo driver celery, blasted himself up a couple thousand feet into the air, setting a world record. That's what he did with flat Earth painted on the side of his rocket, and it got him a lot of attention. And Russian Vids was mad about it. He said, "Oh, he's just jumping on the bandwagon." He said that Mad Mike is a clown. And he said Eric Dubay is phony because nobody's ever met Eric Dubay in person. Well, somebody sent this to me today. Appreciate it. I was wondering, I was like, well, how do we even know that Russian Vids is like a person? He's never gone out to meet anybody, but we got a photo. Survev says, what makes you think he's mad at Mad Mike? Direct quotes. How about that? In fact, I'll read you some direct quotes. Infinite Plane Radio.
Yeah, can I speak to Mark Google?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. So what do you think about the mouse on the rocket? Are you convinced that it's a real mouse, or is it just CGI, or is it ice?
Is this Adam?
Is this Adam? Yeah, pretty much. Are you calling Infinite Plane Radio?
No, I was calling Marfugal TV.
Oh, Marfugal. Yeah, actually, I haven't seen Marfugal in a while. I know who you're talking about. No, this isn't Marfugal, but what were you going to ask him?
I just wanted to tell him that I love him.
You love Marfugal.
Yes.
All right, let me go ahead and say. I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the right person. Who is Marfugal? Just refresh me really quick here.
Well, his real name is Adam, but
Okay, I know who you're talking about. I've seen this guy before. He's like a right wing, alt right. He talks about QAnon.
He's so cute.
No, QAnon. Like, you know,
Oh, oh, I don't know about that, but Adam is certainly cute. Wouldn't you agree?
no, but I'll pass it on to him. Any more comments before I go? What do you think about Russian vids? Do you find Russian vids to be cute?
Oh, I love Russian videos. I watch them all the time. You know, the ones where they're like on ice, driving around and wrecking into each other.
Yeah. No, actually, this guy doesn't have any of those. He doesn't even have anything Russian about his channel.
I don't understand.
Anyway, you have a great night. Appreciate you calling, and I'll tell Marfugal that you have a man crush on him. All right, open phones 505-510-4226. Honestly, I heard of Marfugal. I didn't know who he was. I had to take a look. Yeah, I don't know. It's a Friday night. A lot of people are drunk. And those of you who are still hitting the YouTube crack pipes need to come on over to D Live. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs. If I can do it by Sunday, that'd be great. We have 817. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was just a total weirdo. I have no control over it. So this is the actual engine. This is the engine, which I think there's a mouse living in here. But this is it. Now it's 4-foot diameter at the bottom. Now the part where you saw the mouse would have been right here. And here's Elon Musk having a laugh. Find the Gray says butt dial. Yeah, probably. I don't know how he would have dialed me. How would he even, I mean, is my number even on the screen? Anyway, I got to get back to work. I'm preparing this thing for Sunday. I hope to see you all there. If you're on my list, of course, you'll get notification. And if you're on Patreon, you won't have to pay the full ticket price, which is only $10. And it's definitely a quality control measure here. We're going to have a curated chat room. I have the business version of Zoom. Post Globe says Marfugal just moved to D Live and his listeners came with. Yeah, that's kind of funny how I've noticed D Live is like, it's just waves of people. Like you got, like last month, it was a whole bunch of bears. Now it's a bunch of Marfugals. But every time somebody gets kicked off YouTube, they flood over here. Okay, so I'm going to take off. It looks like we don't have any more calls coming in. This is Neo Mode, and if you want any of the music that we play on this channel, you just go over to infiniteplainsociety.com and click the music button. I'll see you all later on.
Love is in my home. Love is in my home. Globe, globe is my home. I'm too infinite. Globe is in my home. The globe is in my home. You telling me the globe is my home. The globe is in my home. The globe is in my home. I'm too infinite. I'm too infinite. I'm too infinite. And I'm killing it. I'm killing it. I'm drilling it. And I said it's fake as shit. Yeah, I was in the basement. Now I'm in the spaceship, cause it's fake shit. Got on my camera, and I'm guiding the challenger. I'm smashing the actress, cause that's all that NASA is. Space isn't real, the stars are a spirit, and I'm trying to do it real. I'm counting it. I'm trying to show space is so fake. Nobody can relate. So infinite, yeah. I'm So every night, every night, every night, every night, every night, every night, oh, 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 never right, never right, every night, yeah, oh, knowledge.